Erica Lorraine Spencer here. This is the P.O.C. pattern of conduct, the ongoing real-time documentation of what is the criminal pattern of conduct of federal stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsection 1 and subsection 2. This is the pattern of conduct underway by a public entity, that is the state of California, that is engaging in federal stalking in concert with the people of the state of California. So this is group conduct. And this is the practicing of what are the criminal elements of monitoring amongst what is the demon possessed. And so this is what is documentation of terrorism as it is underway by a public entity in concert with the people of the state who are in the shoes of the government as this criminal system is in ceaseless operation. And as the state engages in this demented group conduct, this is revealing how the public entity, that is the state of California, that is in the United States of America, how terrorism of an American citizen plays out, what that looks like, how that is facilitated amongst a people, amongst a government, how it is public corruption in plain sight, and not only that, how you formulate policy and how you prosecute that which is demonic conduct, it's demonic activity, but that which is in no way impervious to prosecution in federal court, and being subject to ratification into federal policy. This is the P.O.C. This is Erica Lorraine Spencer. It is Thursday, December 9th, 2021. The current time is 6:48 p.m. and I just want to give a synopsis. The state of California is still monitoring me in concert with the people of the state of California. I remain subject to that criminal system, which is terrorism that I remain subject to by the government. That is not only practicing demonic activity, that is the terrorism as a government, as an entity does so. It is also that which is in violation of existing federal law. And that is what is audible activity inside of the private space where the government is currently monitoring. That is relevant to what is policy that I advocate, the federal stalking conduct by an entity, the people of the state and the government itself directly, monitoring inside of a private space. And that is audible activity at 6:49 p.m., also occurring with simultaneity to my new movement in the private space while the entity is maintaining group presence on behalf of the government. I'm at facilitating venue Fontana Lewis Library, where they've been engaged in ongoing surveillance, stalking with audible activity. These are demons that surround, engaging in that demented behavioral pattern on behalf of the government, and all of whom are monitoring with communication devices. This is audible activity by one who is monitoring as well. So anyway, like I said, that is audible activity created inside of the private space. And I just want to give a rundown of what was the P.O.C. today. I did ride third-party facilitating venue Omnitrans, and that was at 8:28 a.m. when I got on that venue, and that was driven by employee number 2571. And is there something I can help you with?
Are you going to be using that computer?
Why are you worried about what I'm doing? Worry about you, third party. She is on computer number 456. No, she's monitoring me. Understand that. That's a minion. She's on FONPL01. That's audible activity. She's monitoring. Anyway, you have what is riding on third-party facilitating venue Omnitrans today, and that was Route 61 from Ontario, and that was driven by employee number 2571. And I did arrive in Fontana at around 9:26 a.m. And I did come to the Fontana Lewis Library. The state engaging in P.O.C. ceaselessly. I want to document what is sexual violence. With regard to monitoring right now, I will go ahead and recite a license plate while they're monitoring, but the state is engaged in ongoing P.O.C. What I am focused on is my documentation, which is already published as I put it online, and I'm also putting together and tying in what is that policy for what are state actors such as City of Fontana, license 1361316, who are also engaging in P.O.C. as I walked to this venue this morning as well. But they are present at the Fontana Lewis Library, stalking in the path with light, while you have what is an old biddy that's engaging in audible activity and is in... First of all, she's monitoring. First of all, remember that. And then second of all, you have what is a psychopath that acts like I'm disturbing her when she's monitoring me while I'm inside the bathroom. She's stalking at the venue on behalf of the government. This is the reality of what she's engaged in. And she creates audible activity under the guise of I am disturbing her. Okay? It is P.O.C. nonetheless. And you have what is also third parties that I'm speaking to what are the circumstances under which they engage in harassment, they being the people. You have what is engagement in third parties hollering and yelling, using the speakerphone inside of the library, and it's not a disturbance when the minions do it, it's a disturbance when the targeted individual documents them, okay? So understand that. You're dealing with psychopaths, you're dealing with demonic activity, they're demons. And that's exactly why I regard them, and they are despicable and pathetic. And no matter how old or how gray her hair is, she's a third-party group stalker. While this day was creating audible activity inside of the bathroom, that she was monitoring me too. So like I said, City of Fontana is present monitoring right now at 6:52 p.m. And this is audible activity while I'm being monitored at the Lewis Library, and I did remain subject to that system all day long. I did want to just record a podcast speaking to the sexual violence that I remained subject to while the entity is monitoring. It did not stop because I didn't upload a podcast this morning. I am focused on what you will see on my website and on my YouTube page, where all of my video documentation is published. And on my website, the totality of my documentation, which includes my podcast, all of my images and screenshots, video captures, and my podcast together, everything that I document on a particular day, in other words, it is all together on my website, which is thepatternofconduct.wordpress.com. And my goal is, what I stated from the outset, is the publishing the totality of that documentation, because documenting a government that's practicing what's demonic activity, that is engaging in what is an entirely demented pattern of conduct, that is engaged in what is an unprecedented and unlegislated criminal system, is that which you cannot look at in a vacuum. It's not isolated, and you do have to understand the totality of the big picture. And this is also by design, when you have what are third parties that pick and choose pieces of evidence to look at versus another piece of evidence. And that's not how you're looking at a pattern of conduct, first of all. And that's not how you're looking at what is a malicious system operated by a people and by the government, okay? And so the totality of my documentation, including what was June 4th, 2021 until June 18, 2021, which was the last chunk of documentation. And that is attributed to the third parties on the venue of the internet, including Spotify, that removed my podcast. But nonetheless, even if Spotify hadn't removed it, I was still going to create my videos and combine that with the podcast document. So it was something that needed to be done, but it is nonetheless something that contributes to the threat posed to my life while the government is monitoring. Understand, I was kidnapped on June 18, 2021, while Spotify engaged in such threatening conduct and facilitating that state's obstruction of justice pattern to conceal the fact that they are monitoring. And I was kidnapped on June 18th. That is directly relevant to the prosecution of the people, to the prosecution of this entity. All right, that is the sort of conduct that is threatening that targeted individuals that remain subject to such a system, and that is exactly why there is no legal excuse or form when you are facilitating the government's ability to monitor, because that's exactly how it does it. It does it through what you are doing, you being the people. The government is acting through people. The government is not an individual. Obviously, the government is an entity. All right, the people give it form, the people give it voice. All right, the people give it function. So you have what is the totality of that documentation that is published, and I want to speak to what is my arrival at Fontana Lewis, where I was subject to the system. So for purposes of understanding where I was at today on December 9th, 2021, I did remain at Fontana Lewis Library, where the people were engaged in ongoing surveillance, ongoing monitoring inside of the private space, which is exactly what I was publishing on my podcast right now. As you listen to it, the state was amplifying an audible activity, which you are not ordinarily going to hear again. The state is tunneling in noise and doing it with knowledge of where I am in the bathroom, what I'm doing in the bathroom as I'm doing it. And I've shown you this while I'm standing outside, while I am making any knee-jerk movement, any unrecognized movement. The moment I engage in something new, the helicopter comes out of the blue, right? That's exactly what is ongoing when I'm in the private space. And that minion that you heard with gray hair on her head is engaging in harassment by an entity while she is monitoring me, okay? Knew exactly what I was doing in the bathroom and knows that I'm documenting on my podcast as she is engaging in interrupting me while I am not paying attention to her. It's called audible activity creation and relevant position. And she's speaking on behalf of the state that was monitoring me inside of that private space. So I just want to be clear, that was a facilitating video of the Fontana Lewis Library. The P.O.C. does not stop, okay? The P.O.C. is continuous. The pattern of conduct by a government that is monitoring and stalking does not take a pause. It is certainly not respecting your privacy, ATDY 843. And I just want to document that I did ride on Omnitrans to get to Fontana, where I did remain subject to the pattern of conduct today. This is just for purposes of publishing where I'm at. The fact that I am focused on organizing what is the prosecution of the entity as you're looking at the totality of that documentation, which is all published, and also understanding what is the policy that I advocate with regard to the ways in which any ordinary target individual is targeted by the government. And the government is doing it with the people. So you're talking about prosecuting the people of any state, prosecuting a public entity, the government, that's monitoring American citizens in the United States of America. That's the reality of what is going on. And so with regard to Erica Lorraine Spencer and myself, my concern is, and understand what you hear in the background is not serving any commercial purpose. It's ongoing criminal conduct, okay? This is serving to monitor me, and it's not serving any commercial purposes on my behalf. This is documentation, everything that you're hearing, okay? So what I was speaking to is, as far as Erica Lorraine Spencer goes, my concern is not only to prosecute and to literally provide a tutorial for what is malicious conduct by what are demons. This is the reality of what is group stalking. It's a system that's engaged in by demons, demon-possessed people. And those are referred to as psychopaths, deceptive in every fathomable way, that any unfathomable way, some way that you can't even fathom. That is what the entity engages in. And so with regard to revealing that, my goal is to show and inform and advise and provide what is a way out of no way. In other words, the reason why it happened to me is it grieves me to fathom in my mind that it would happen to someone else and them having no idea how to approach it, even confront that. And it's not impervious. It is not impossible. And anyway, you're talking about establishing precedent. That's what I'm doing. But with regard to the ordinary target individual, it is going to be something that any ordinary person, you do not have to go to law school. You do not have to be some college educated science rocket scientist, in other words, in order to do this. It's in a way that any person can access the ability to enforce their constitutional rights, and bringing what is justice to the table for the ordinary American, where the government is essentially being a bully, okay? Where the people of the state thinking that they can rule by numerosity, and actually they're going to be prosecuted by that very numerosity. It is flipping that system, that wicked and demented system, on its head, okay? So anyway, it's 6:58 p.m. and that's what I'm focusing on, is publishing the rest of my documentation. And this is seen on my website as you're looking at which I'm going to publish on that particular website with regard to the kidnapping. This is what happened after June 18, 2021, which I published. All right. And so after that, I'm kidnapped from June 18, 2021 up until August 16, 2021. And you see, I immediately get back to documenting, which I believe I begin on as soon as August 17th or August 18, 2021. And you're looking at what is the fake sun over the Ontario Police Department, that agency that is demon possessed, and they're going to federal prison. Okay. And that is the purpose of that documentation, revealing what is the stalking with light, stalking by entity. And that is another venue where that state system is underway. And there is no exception. That's what the big picture is. There's no exception to what the state is doing or where it is doing it. All right. And you're looking at nothing other than another state facilitating venue of the Ontario Police Department as I am publishing that documentation in August of 2021. But before that, what I'm publishing and republishing for purposes of the order, the sequence, the chronology of things, how the pattern of conduct, the criminal system, how it progressed on that timeline. You're talking about, I was kidnapped more than once, okay? And this is relevant to the specific episode that I published today, or republished today, Kidnapped by Entity with the Intent to Obstruct Justice, and that is a fictitious prosecution of the people of the state of California versus Erica Lorraine Spencer, and that is reference to case number Mary Wendy Victor 2000640. All right, and I did release that. That's pursuant to what was the latest kidnapping, which was June 18, 2021 by the Ontario Police Department. All right, with regard to the documentation that I'm publishing, that was the latest episode, and that was with regard to the kidnapping that occurred again. The entity engaged in a pattern of kidnapping, that same entity that you're hearing sounding sirens, American Medical Response, okay? And this is the KFC that's on Sierra Avenue, right in front of the El Niños shopping center. This is a Fontana swap meet where I documented the fake sun over me on this day, and that is American Medical Response engaging in ongoing. They don't have any form. I'm showing you what is laser-like directed light while they're driving in front, stalking. All right, and they're stalking right now again, directed light, and that's the federal imprisonment of the state as it's engaging in criminal facilitation, stalking me, and that's terrorism while an entity targets you. And then as you're documenting it, the infliction of harm that American citizen suffers, knowing that the government is targeting you. All right. You know, when the sirens are going by, that they are engaging in an ongoing pattern of stalking and doing it in that manner, and that every freak around you is monitoring you as well. That's an infliction of harm as well. While, by the way, what I didn't say when I'm documenting this, just giving an update for today, on December 9th, 2021, the state is flying around in helicopter as well. All right, just like I showed last night, that is American Medical Response. And so, like I was stating, American Medical Response engaged in a pattern of kidnapping and also engaging in kidnapping while they were monitoring with the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department while I was kidnapped by that entity. It's as late as June 18th, 2021, that latest kidnapping. And American Medical Response was engaging in the same conduct, stalking, using their sirens and lights, while the state was keeping its fake sun over that San Bernardino Sheriff's Department vehicle that I was in, while they were transporting me to and from those state facilitating venues between the Rancho Cucamonga Superior Court and the West Valley Detention Center. All right, so I just want to be clear. What AMR is doing is no distraction. It's ongoing documentation about that very criminal activity that they were engaged in while I was kidnapped by the same exact entity. And so with regard to the purpose of policy and tying in what is not only documentation serving for purposes of prosecuting an entity and also showing how any ordinary American citizen whom I desire not to suffer this and having no resolve. There is no resolution where the government is monitoring you as in the court. All right. And you're talking about what attorney are you going to have represent you? Their third party and state actors. They are monitoring you as well. Okay. They are engaged in a pattern of conduct that is intended to maintain you in a kidnapped state. All right. This is the totality of that state system. All right. So I want to speak to that. This is what my focus is, and that's what my documentation is looking like on my website. August through the present is published already. So including the additional details, the let me get this license because they're monitoring with American Medical Response. License 8RYH208. American Medical Response engaging in facilitation, and that third party is monitoring with them. So anyway, you have what is the totality of that documentation that's already published, but I am going to include those additional details, and that is my focus now. But nonetheless, the pattern of conduct is underway, and you see that progress as I'm uploading it on not only my YouTube channel, but my website. Okay. And so the entity does not stop monitoring. This is the terrorism that the government that's going toward the policy, because the government is engaging in demonic activity. These are demon possessed actors in the position of government. This is a demonic possessed entity, the people of the state, dangerous psychopaths. Threats to the public, all right, and monitoring American citizens while those demons engage in conduct as though it is everyday life and they have a rude awakening. You're going to reveal what is the threat that they actually do pose while they're engaging in that unprecedented criminal system, all right. And so it is 7:06 p.m. And today, again, it's December 9, 2021. Subject to, as you witnessed on my podcast, ongoing sexual violence while the entity is monitoring in the private space. And I want to speak to what is, again, you're talking about what are demons. You're talking about what is malicious conduct. You're talking about what is vicarious stalking on behalf of the state. And so I want to document, not only did you hear that amplified audible activity while I'm in the bathroom, while the state repeats it, okay, while it knows that I'm documenting, while it knows I'm on my phone, the state engaged in that creation of what is amplified audible activity that you cannot ordinarily hear inside of the bathroom. Under any circumstances, it's audible activity. The state is monitoring. It's engagement in the elements. But you cannot, in fact, actually hear that loud amplification through the walls of the bathroom. And it's occurring pursuant to the same demonic behavioral pattern as I engage in movement, simultaneous creation of noise that's demonic. And that is speaking to terrorism while the state is practicing demonic conduct. And it is also federal stalking in the private space. That's the sex offender, that is the state. A demon-possessed sex offender, okay? Including the voice of that old biddy who was monitoring inside of the Fontana Lewis Library, okay? So I want to be clear. The entity also, before I started recording, I want to speak to what is the specific infliction of harm. You're talking about not only what are sex offenders, everything that the demon-possessed do as they do it, meaning the moment, the timestamp that they are doing it is intentional, okay? So I want to speak to the entity engaging in at Fontana Lewis Library, stalking inside of the private space with knowledge of the documentation. And you have what is a third party that enters the private space, which is crossing path. This is affirmative conduct and sexually violent monitoring conduct, which is vicarious. This is the government that's entering into the bathroom while it is aware of the fact that you are documenting. In other words, you know that the government is monitoring. You suspect that you're documenting it, and they're monitoring that documentation. This is an intent to inflict sexually motivated, sexually violent harm. All right. This is extra and above the ordinary harm inflicted where the government is monitoring you. This is the stalker following you into the bathroom. All right. And with real-time knowledge, okay, of what you are doing inside of that private space. So in other words, at the moment that I am pulling my panties down, the people enter inside of the private space. I want to document that specific intent to engage in that harm, okay? And that is documented inside of the Fontana Lewis Library. They're acting on behalf of the whole entity. The demon-possessed engage in conduct that is not only sexually violent, they do it at the moments that they do it. Every single aspect of it is malicious, okay? And it is intentional, and it is pursuant to that behavioral pattern. Whether they come in before or after I pull my panties up or down, understand it is the pattern of conduct, but I want to make sure I specify because these are details that are relevant to the intensity of that prosecution. And that is the sex offender that you are dealing with. That is the reality, and that is not my wanting to be explicit just because I want to be graphic. You need to understand what are the demon-possessed and the violent sex offender that they are. You are dealing with psychopaths. I'm showing you what is Walmart. Those psychopaths are monitoring, and you're hearing the audible activity that's coming out of their mouth. That is the conduct that will have them resulting in federal prison and or in straitjackets. All right. That is the sexual violence that same psychopath enters into while they're in the private space on behalf of the state, knowing that you're on a computer, laptop, publishing documentation about the fact that they're stalking you, okay? In every regard, a violent sex offender. And I want to document that. That's Fontana Lewis Library, the venue. City of Fontana is stalking in the parking lot, all right? Stalking this morning en route to that venue as well, all right? But I want to make sure that I document that. And then you hear the audible activity of that stalker who was very perturbed by the fact that I'm documenting her and the whole entity. That's the reality of that. You're dealing with demons, and this is speaking to that policy and understanding the nature of the demon-possessed, the malice with which those psychopaths operate, all right? And these are psychopaths in the position of government. These are psychopaths at your neighborhood grocery store. These are psychopaths that are living all around you, that are in traffic around you, whose name you know, all right? Who you may or may not actually be related to, all right? They're psychopaths. It's the same demonic entity acting on behalf of the government that's practicing this satanic targeting system. All right, it is currently 7:10 p.m. It is, again, like I said, Thursday, December 9, 2021, and that is the P.O.C. All right, just a couple of notes about some stalkers. 8N RN434 is stalking on the side of the of G Street, opposite of 7-Eleven where I'm going. That is literally a stalker that is also stalking with the state that amplifies plane engines while I'm walking down the street to the 7-Eleven. All right, that's a third-party group stalker, a demon-possessed one that knows exactly who I am, where I'm going, and is tracking my steps and is maintaining presence as I'm coming from the car on the side of the street with their headlights on while the state amplifies plane engines, okay? I'm sitting in their car. Stalking is 8VSK053, 8SVK056, 8AFU987, 5UYK278. And demons fill the 7-Eleven. They're all on surveillance cameras, and I'm referencing the camera. P.O.C. It is 7:58 p.m. This is 7-Eleven at 636 North Fern Avenue. This is the elements of monitoring. They're monitoring inside of this 7-Eleven. Patrolling in and out of the door is audible activity. Playing the music is the maintenance of audible activity while these demons are lined up in relevant position inside of the store. And demons are patrolling on Vine Avenue in traffic and on G Street, just like I read that license plate, while the state is flying over. That was the plane engines as I walked to this venue. And demons are sitting in their cars in the parking lot, stalking in the path. Again, this is 636 North Vine Avenue. Believe me, it's not a fiesta. These are demons that are monitoring and stalking. It's 7:59 p.m. All right, this is prosecuted as relevant positioning, audible activity creation, and terrorism. Alrighty, I want to get the rest of these demons license plates. I believe I already read those. Yeah, the 8SVK and 8FAU. 7RXM767, and this one is 7KYB851. An 8XTV 575. All right, got another minion lining up behind that other demon across the street. I'm gonna go get their license plate as well. 8VAG 668. And it's 8:01 p.m. Molesting is 75498Z2. 5DBM 104 and 5CCE 989 and 6JTF 121. They're all in directed light while they're molesting. You're stalking. They're stalking on behalf of the state. That's the position of that. There is no argument for that. 7MTG 718, meaning touching while you're stalking on behalf of the government. And literally there's nowhere that they can hide. Okay. And there's no placement in traffic where you're, well, I'm driving in the street. No, you're stalking on behalf of the state in directed light, and you're touching while you're doing so. That's a sex offender. All right. And she's in operation for a communication device. That demon with license 5DBM 104 at Woodside Senior Apartments. License 8UMH378. All right. And that demon knows exactly who I am. That's why she pulls up far in front of a different residence, in front of a curb. 8HOY 386, and then she engages in reversing. She's studying her communication device, and doing so she's monitoring. 4NLA 797. Let's see. License plate. And I want to be clear, this same entity is the one that stalking in the bathroom today. 8EXW 615, waiting until I pull my panties down to enter inside of the bathroom as the predator that they are. Okay, this is who I'm documenting as I'm reading their license plates. They're one entity, and they are the same demons with that same issue with being sex offenders. 622BO or 622BD. I can't really see that one. That's a handicap license plate. It's a burgundy colored van. It is currently 8:03 p.m. And these are also the same demons, the same entity. Understand, the people of the state are acting on behalf of the government. All right, the government is numerous through the people of the state. And you have what is that same entity while they are stalking, driving past the car, the state aiming directed light inside of the car, aiming directed light onto the wall of what is 325 West G Street, and doing so as I look in that direction. This is a demon-possessed stalker, knows exactly everything that I'm doing, every direction that I'm looking. All right, knows exactly what I'm doing as I'm doing it, every syllable that I'm uttering. All right, and that's just going to their prosecution. And as they are the stalker with that status, an unprecedented stalker, and a very violent sex offender, an absolute psychopath. Okay, it is currently 8:04 p.m. 6YOX 838. I just want to remind you of where I'm at. 7KHJ 732. These are license plates over here. 6W53229. 5ESN 743. 8NAW 854. And this is at 630 North Fern Avenue. It's 8:04 p.m. P.O.C.